Hey, before we start the show this week, did you know that in just 5 minutes, you could potentially make a huge impact on the future of the Bears? All you need to do is sign up to the RFL's Our League platform and select the Bears as one of your teams. It's free to join, it's packed full of rugby league news, competitions, videos, and loads more besides. But our following on that platform might influence future funding decisions, so we need as many fans on there as possible. Even if you put us as second choice, we won't mind. Make a difference in just a few minutes today. Head over to rugby-league.com/ourleague to create your account and pick the Bears as one of your teams. Right, on with the show. Welcome to Bear Necessities, your official Coventry Bears podcast. We live at coventrybears.com and you can listen wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Dave Musson, one of your co-hosts. I've just about cooled down from a baking hot afternoon at the Butts on Sunday, and hopefully my co-host has too. It's former Bears fullback Craig Cathcart. Craig, hot, wasn't it?
It was very, very hot. And when I started sitting in the stand, I was in the shade and the sun kept moving further and further back. So by the end of the game, I was sat pretty much at the back of the stand.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I was weltered just sitting down. So how the players coped, I really don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. As we'll hear from player coach Dave Scott later on, he said it was one of the warmest conditions he's ever played in. So, it was not for the faint-hearted on Sunday. In this episode, we are going to go over a valiant performance from the Bears on Sunday against Workington Town, and we will get the post-match thoughts, as I've just said, of player coach Dave Scott and of head coach Rich Squires. And we will also have a look ahead to this weekend, another home game against the Keighley Cougars. But first up then, let's recap Sunday's melting game, where the Bears played very well, but ultimately suffered a 30-12 loss to a very good promotion hunting Workington side. And it was one of those games where just, sometimes the scoreboard only tells part of the story. Safe to say that the better team did leave the Butts Park Arena with the win on Sunday, but the Bears can definitely be proud of their efforts against, as I said, a very, very good, very well-drilled, clinical side that is really going for the promotion. And in parts on Sunday, the Bears were dominant. They forced repeat sets and they were camping on the Workington line. They were just unable to get over and score. And unfortunately, Town did pull away in the final quarter of the match. Now, aside from facing a team at the top of the table, there were plenty of other factors conspiring against the Bears going into this one. We already knew going into the match that joint top try scorer Nathan Hill had been ruled out after suffering a mild concussion against Crusaders last week. And then they lost captain Liam Wellham in the warm-up on doctor's advice, which meant basically a reshuffle of an already reshuffled backline. So Kieran Sherratt and Sam Bowring were our two centres on the day, and Jack Dawson was shoved out onto the wing. And that's even before factoring in the weather. As we've already discussed, it was hot, it was sun-drenched and sweaty, and that was before the teams had even warmed up, to be honest. Into the match itself, Workington opened the scoring after just 3 minutes. And a tough start for the Bears was made even harder just a few minutes later when Chris Cullymore was simbin for a late tackle. And from that resulting field position, Town nearly scored again, actually, but their hooker was ruled out for offside. And that bit of luck actually seemed to spark Coventry into life a little bit, and we started to dominate possession despite being a player down, and eventually deservedly got over the line in the 16th minute with Kieran Sherratt, who had now moved again to fill in for Cullymore. He borrowed over from dummy half for what was his third try of the season, and Dan Coates converted. After that, the pendulum swung back in Town's favour. Their fullback just cut through our defence and sprinted in from halfway. But again, that seemed to galvanise the Bears once more, and they set about that first period of dominance where they looked for all in the world like they would get over the line, but couldn't quite do it. And they took that form into the start of the second half. They were really looking dangerous at times, and the tempo was really high. Elliot Windley, a player making his debut, who we'll talk about later on, was full of probing runs, and Dave Scott was a constant creative threat, as well as big shifts from Darius Hamilton, playing in his first game of the season, as well as Peter Ryan, Elliot Townsend, and Jed Charlton, all putting in tremendous pieces of work. But the crucial part of all this was that the Bears were not able to score. They weren't able to draw the game level. And Town scored twice in 6 minutes, and that really killed the game. It certainly burst the Bears' bubble. And they did score again just before the final whistle. But Bears actually had the final say. Brad Ho powered over from close range with a minute left for his first Bears try. It did give the Bears a final say with Dan Coates converting, and the final score of 30-12 to Workington. So not the result the Bears wanted, but a vast improvement on last week's performance. And, with another home game next week, this week, I should say, where they will be hopefully bolstered by a few returning players as well. There are a lot of positives to take. Craig and I are going to discuss some of those positives in a moment, but first let's hear from the coaches. Dave Scott is coming up shortly, right after the post-match thoughts of head coach Rich Squires.
Conditions were against you today, and ultimately a really terrific effort, but just edged by a better team, or perhaps a more clinical team. How did you find that?
Yeah, they were a very well-drilled team, that keep going for 80 minutes and play the right procedures for 80 minutes. I think that's what the changes we had to make, and we had to be forced into before the game didn't really help. Because we didn't have much to adjust, and we just missed that little attacking threat where we normally have them. But yeah, they grafted for 80 minutes, did the boys, and 1-17 they can be proud of. But beaten by a better, well-drilled team and well-coached team as well.
It felt like those two quick-fire tries just around the hour mark really just burst the bubble for you guys. Was it just one of those days?
I think so. We missed our attacking threat in the centres, which is normally our go-to, and it was there and. It wasn't there today, so we looked for different options, and attacking wise we probably want the most, it wasn't at our best today, but which cost us, because we were down in there 20 for a good 4 or 5 sets back to back, and we didn't come away with anything, and you can't do that against these kind of teams, and they went back to back with us, which essentially it should have been us that were doing the back-to-backs, but we learn from that, and hopefully we can get some bodies back in next week.
I wanted to ask firstly about those periods of sustained pressure just before half-time and just after half-time, and as you said, unable to score, and that really damaged your chances of getting anything out of the game. Do you put a lot of that down to the fact that it was such a rejigged back line, or is that a little bit of inexperience as well?
I think so, a bit of both. We have been quite fluent in that and got some consistent structure in that back line. We have done for 4 or 5 games. So I think it does come down to it a lot. Timings are off, and the people who are normally there are in different positions. So it's tough for them to react. And in those periods, we're not bothered about them coming. I mean, we are bothered about them coming away with points, but as long as we keep that sustained pressure, it benefits us down the line. At half time we're going in 12-6. It's another Barrow Rochdale situation, where we stay in the arm wrestle and we get the rewards in the back end. But we lost a couple of bodies, and them back to backs really did kill us, and you can't defend in conditions like this and against a critical team like Workington for a sustained amount of time.
So talk us through the state of your squad a little bit, because I know Nathan Hill didn't make the squad because of a concussion last week, and there were concerns about Matty Wellham, but he did ultimately play, and Kieran Sherratt seemed to be okay, but no Liam Wellham today, and a bit more of a rejigging. Like, where are you at with injuries?
Yeah, so Nathan picked up a head knock last week and just got told to rest this week. Ryan Langton's self-isolating due to North Wales and the situation over there that's kind of had an effect on us. Liam Wellham got pulled in the warm-up by the doctor by his elbow. He was all meant to be playing, but the doctor pulled him and made the call there. Kieran Sherratt's been playing with one arm because he's got a convulsion fracture on his right arm, so he's been doing it tough. Jack Dawson has never played wing before in his life and ended himself up there because that's the situation we're in. And that it's just what we had to do, but all teams are doing it tough, but we did it really tough today because a lot of it is last minute. Elliot Windley came off the bench today for his first stint for us, which I thought was really good and offered a different dimension for us.
Well, I wanted to ask you about him actually. Obviously, a new name for fans watching, a new name on the team sheet. Just tell us a bit about him, because he did bring a lot of tempo and a lot of pace to the game.
Yeah. So he's got a heart of a lion for his stature. He's only really small. He's originally from West Hull, where we know him from. He's been playing NCL, NCL Premier since he was 16-year-old. and he's always been that size. He hasn't grown since there. He was at Warrington 2 years ago and got their reserve player of the year, and then unfortunately got released that year just to do a different signing. He's been at York for the last month. Speaking with him, and the game time opportunities we're going to get with York was going to be limited, so he's jumped on board with us, and the more he plays, the better he'll get.
Yeah, definitely. So we've talked previously about the fact this is the first of 4 back-to-back home games. Keighley next week, who they've announced this weekend they've got a few members of their squad who are having to self-isolate. You're obviously going to want to bounce back and get another win, but it seems almost crass to ask it as a question, but do you look at their situation and their difficulties and see that as an extra mark in your favour, or do you just have to put all that aside and focus on who turns up?
Yeah, I think we just focus on us. To be fair, it'll be thrown around there, and people will look at it, but I think me and Dave will just look at ourselves and try and getting our bodies back on. The physio team will work with them this week, and the boys have got to look after themselves to go there. But it's we've got to build from this. We're with a team of inconsistency at the minute where we go good, bad. It's another good performance today for large periods of it, and the effort was there. It's just the clinical part, so we can address that in training as long as the effort's there. The fans can take something away from it as long as the boys are grafting, and we've got to go into next week. We like playing at home, it seems, tempo wise, and being able to get up for it. And again, it is down to the fans, and it was another great atmosphere today, which the boys thrive off. So we've got to build from that, and hopefully we can get some bodies back. We can time to get some consistency back together again. And
just lastly, we're now, incredible as it seems, we're a third of the way through the season already. If you had to give your team a score, a grade, how would you fare?
Probably say 6 out of 10.
Yeah.
There's room for it. There's room for improvement, and they've let themselves down in different situations. We keep saying for it, it's a bugbear of mine. It keeps playing on it. I've got it written on my whiteboard at home. If we perform like this, or the Rochdale Borough game against the Scholars and the North Wales, it's a completely different story in the leaderboard. But we find ourselves where we are, and I think before today, I think there were 6 teams on all the same points. So it's close, and we've just got to make sure we come out on the right side of things, and and keep going together as a group. There's been different periods so far in these first 6 games where previously I think we could have folded and and kind of gone into a bit of a danger zone, but the group we've got this year are reacting to it really well, and I think it's starting to show. We just need to kind of stay there now and continue moving forward and not take any steps back.
Well, thanks as always for your time, and good luck for next week.
Cheers, Dave, thank you.
Dave, the conditions for this game, it was pretty much unbearable just sat in the stand watching. What was it like playing, or how hot was it down on the pitch?
Probably one of the toughest conditions I've ever played in. I couldn't breathe at some points, and I'm quite fortunate that I play on an edge, so it must have been really tough for those boys that were doing big minutes in the middle. So that's for both teams. Well done for the effort that they put in, because I thought environmentally, in terms of the conditions, it was very, very tough out there. So well done to everyone that took the field. In terms of the performance, it was obviously a step up from last week, and there was a lot more positives to take from the Bears' performance today. It just felt like perhaps Workington were that little bit better drilled and that little bit more clinical, particularly in the second half. I mean, how did you see it from your position right in the middle there? So firstly, yeah, you're right. It's a massive step up from last week. I think there was absolutely no lack of effort, and I'm so proud of the boys with what they turned up with today and what they dished up. And then on top of that, add into the list of injuries that we've got, we've had to reshuffle the team, and Liam Wellham had to pull out late from the squad. He was ruled out medically by the doctor because he's woken up with bursitis in his elbow, so unfortunately that ruled him out. So we had another late reshuffle, so we're kind of doing it tough at the moment with injuries and people playing out of position, which doesn't help. But in terms of the performance and the effort, I can't ask any more from the boys. And as you said, Workington were very well drilled, and in these conditions, when you always knew it was going to be an energy battle, we always knew it was going to be about controlling the football, and I thought we did that for large parts of the game. But Workington just kept coming and just did not drop off, and in the end they were just able to get the better of us. So full credit to Workington. They were slightly better than us on the day, and I think they deserved the win, but taking nothing away from our boys, we really did turn up today, and we really had a crack, and I couldn't be prouder of them.
A couple of lads in Bears shirts for the first time this season, this afternoon. So we've got Elliot Windley joining the squad, and Darius Hamilton making his first appearance. What did you feel they brought to the team?
Yeah, I thought Elliot did a great job coming off the bench. He managed to speed it up around the rock for us and just offered something a little bit different. We've been asking a lot of Chris Cullimore over the last 4 or 5 weeks doing 80 in the middle. And, you know, it's not just the fatigue from 1 week, it's the residual fatigue from those 3 or 4 weeks that are eventually going to build up. So it's really nice that we're able to give him a little bit of a rest, although he stayed on the field and I think he played it loose forwards. So, but yeah, I guess it just takes a little bit of intensity out of Chris's game and a little bit of that ownership of having to get to all the play the ball. So it gives him a little bit of a rest, makes it a little bit easier. And I thought Elliot did a fantastic job when he came on. So well done to him. And Darius, you know, he's a big lad and he can run the ball in and he can tackle hard. And I thought, you know, he did that well today. He carried hard and he tackled hard and he did what was asked of him.
Great stuff. Obviously, we've got another 3 home games coming up back to back now. What will you be looking to take out of this game into the Keighley one next week? I mean, there's going to be talk about the fact that Keighley's squad is being affected by their COVID situation, but I mean, Rich was just saying it's about focusing on who you guys have got and your game. So what positives can you take from today to build into that game?
I think the main thing is the effort and the attitude that we showed. We had our backs up against the wall. We were facing a bit of adversity and we responded from last week. So in terms of attitude and application, absolutely fantastic. And I think actually when I watch back the game, I'm looking forward to seeing how we completed and where we played in areas of the field, because I think we're a lot smarter with the football in hand and coming out our own end, we're a lot more direct and we seem to roll them down the field. So it's a similar thing for next week, where we need to continue to do those things and play the game in the right areas of the field. But in terms of a completion rate, I'm sure we're up there and probably meeting the KPIs that we've set ourselves. So looking forward to reviewing it. And
just lastly, I'll warn you in advance, it's a slightly tough question, but I asked it to Rich, I'm going to ask it to you as well. We're now a third of the way through the season. If I asked you to give the Bears a score, a grade so far, what would you give them?
That is a tough question. So we've taken 4 points from a possible 12, is that right? I'll give us a 6 out of 10.
Exactly the same as Rich.
A 6 out of 10.
Great. Okay.
Take that.
Good. Well, thanks as always for your time, Dave. Look forward to seeing you again next week, and best of luck.
Great stuff. Always a pleasure, Dave. Thank you.
So thanks as ever to Dave and Rich for joining us. Craig, the Bears can't really have any complaints, I guess, at the outcome of Sunday's game, but they can take a lot of positives from the way they went about it, can't they?
Yeah. I mean, firstly, just credit to both teams. It was a fast, exciting game. Lots of collisions, lots of good running rugby. Both teams were expansive. It was a really, really good game in the heat. And, you know, as I said, I completely applaud both sets of players for making it such a good spectacle. I do think overall probably Workington had a little bit more quality. Certainly their back line was just phenomenal. Really, really good, really pacey. The Bears defended really well throughout, but when there was a gap, when someone was a bit slow getting to the line, they took full advantage and broke through. And you know, they didn't overpower the Bears by any means, but they certainly made some breaks which got them field position and got them the scores. But yeah, the Bears players can certainly hold their heads high. There was that period. What we needed to do was, there was a period before halftime and after halftime, 15 minutes before halftime and the 15 minutes after halftime, where we were completely dominant in the game, particularly in the middle. We were completely out-muscling them and dominating them in the tackle, forcing errors and everything else. That's when we needed to score. You know, it was 12-6 for a long period of time in the game, and we really could have, if we'd scored then to equalise, particularly just before half-time, maybe we would have been in with a real good shot of going on and getting something out of the game. But Workington, to their credit, were defensively brilliant. I mean, the amount of times they defended their own line was incredible. Equally, though, the Bears did goal line defence as well, was just phenomenal on the weekend. So, I mean, it seemed to be in the game, there was just constant. The Bears had constant chances to score throughout the whole game, really, but just not quite managing that last pass. We just couldn't break them down. As you said, the reshuffle as well made a difference. Didn't have our normal centre pairing, didn't have our normal wings and fullback. So, yeah, it it was a game potentially we could have won, but you can't complain at losing, and Workington played very, very well.
And how refreshing as well for us to be talking about this Bears squad that is still in many ways getting to know each other's games and still gelling. But, actually competing with one of the top teams in the league for a large proportion of this game and looking like a really good match for them. It wasn't like a Bears game of old where they sort of got themselves up for the arrival of a big name and faded after 50 minutes or whatever, but for that period you mentioned where ideally the Bears would have scored, and who knows what the momentum of the game would have swung to at that point. But then also those 2 quick fire tries from the Town winger, which really just killed the game in terms of the outcome. But the Bears were in it for so long, and it was, again, just so much positivity to take from that.
I was just going to say, and the Workington fans were genuinely getting concerned in that period where it said 12-6 for quite a long time. Certainly they wouldn't have been expecting, for it to be that close. So, full credit to the guys. Just didn't have enough on the day, but give it their all really in such horrible conditions to play rugby in.
Definitely. Now, I wanted to do what we often do and sort of talk about particular individuals who stood out. And I think there's plenty of Bears players who stood up and made a case for themselves to earn a mention. I'm going to start with Kieran Sherratt, who we know is a versatile player. And, when we saw his name listed among the centres going into the game, I don't think either of you were surprised that he'd been one of the players to move out there, and we weren't concerned about him playing in that position. But he put in a terrific shift as a centre, and then to step up and cover for Chris Cullymore for the 10 minutes he was sin-bin and get the try as well. He is just such an incredible asset for this Bears team to have, isn't he? It's great to have him back in the squad this year, and he really stepped up on Sunday, I thought.
Yeah, he was brilliant. You always get a good performance from Kieran, but he was, again, he's just so strong in the carry, defensively good, works hard, is a threat when you get close to the line. He's just a brilliant player, and as you said, it feels great to have him back in a Bears shirt. I know a lot of people were really disappointed when he moved on to North Wales Crusaders, but good to have him back. And he's definitely making a difference for us.
So another name that was on many Bears supporters' lips, particularly after the game on Sunday, was a new one. Elliot Windley, brought into the squad before the game. We heard a little bit about him in Rich's post-match interview there. What he might lack in height, he makes up for in lots of other ways, doesn't he? How impressed were you with his debut on Sunday?
Yeah, so Elliot Windley came in. I think everyone before the game was asking who he was. We hadn't seen him yet this season. Saw him warming up. He's not the biggest lad, but I tell you what, he was just phenomenal. He's so strong, quick and strong. Dare I say, Rob Burrow-esque with the way that he plays the game. But he's defensively as well. At one point, he absolutely smashed the Workington fullback who picked up a knock as a result. And in one set of 6 as well, I think he made 3 tackles in a row. So what an effort from him. He was just brilliant. Adds a different dimension to the Bears game, definitely. Chris Cullymore is an excellent hooker. But Elliot has that, he's sort of in and around the rock and making things happen. And what a great little player he could be for the Bears. Really, really looked special.
Yeah, and as Rich was saying in his post-match interview as well, obviously having somebody who can allow Chris Cullymore to not have to play every single minute of every game. As it panned out on Sunday, Chris did play the majority of the game just because of what else happened on the pitch. But having that freshness from the interchanges as well is going to help massively, particularly as Chris has played so many minutes already this season. It's really great to not just have someone to come in and fill in for him, but to have someone of that quality as well. I'm really excited to see more of that guy. I think like you say, give something different to what the Bears can offer. And we've talked about it before. the Bears always look at their best when they're playing with high tempo. And, if Chris Collymore gets things moving, we play with a high tempo. But with Elliott, it looks like there's potential to up that even higher for a gear. And, just the thought of bringing him on at a crucial point in the game when perhaps the opposition might be flagging a little bit and just having that injection of pace. And the way he was linking up with Dave Scott looked really promising as well. I thought the two of them both looked really sort of, they added a lot of zip, a lot of creativity. So yeah, lots to be excited about there. Was there anyone else particularly caught your eye on Sunday aside from Kieran and Elliott?
I was just going to say on Elliott Windley as well. Apparently, he comes from a famous family in Hull, who I think possibly, I could be wrong, I think possibly his uncle or granddad managed Hull FC. But I'm happy to be corrected if I'm wrong. But yeah, so real good pedigree there, and another one for the whole connection at the Bears as well. So, but yeah, in terms of other players, I thought Peter Ryan again was phenomenal. His tackling was just immense, and his carries as well. I think he did. There was a couple of occasions when he didn't move up quickly enough in the line, and he gotten beaten one-on-one. So he just does need to keep an eye out for that. But he was up against some very quick backs in the Workington team. But yeah, I thought he was brilliant again. Big shout out as well for Rhys Rance. I think he was phenomenal on Sunday. I thought the amount of carries he made, and the thing is, when he gets tackled, he just keeps going, just pumping his legs, and he plays the ball quickly as well. I thought he was never afraid to work hard and take the ball up. Defensively, I thought he was good as well. So, yeah, he did really, really well, I thought. And he is a real, there are wingers who really do. Wingers who don't work hard, and there are wingers who work really, really hard. And Rhys is the latter, definitely. Works really hard for the team, and I thought he was brilliant. He really did help with giving the pack a rest at times, and taking those hit-ups makes a massive difference.
Yeah, it's just occurred to me another player who did stand out to me on Sunday, who perhaps you wouldn't expect him to have been bouncing defenders off him the way he did when you just look at him, for example. But Elliot Townsend had a terrific shift on Sunday. I thought he was going into contact. He didn't take a step backwards at all. And again, like he's not necessarily built like a classic second row, but he was superb. He just handled everything that was thrown at him, and really kept the Bears moving forwards. I mean, we could probably go through and list pretty much everyone who played. I think particularly in the heat, that they all put in a great shift. And I
do have one more shout as well, and that for Matty Wellham of fullback. He's moved back from the centres into fullback, and they stuck a lot of high balls up in the air, and he coped with everything that came his way. I thought he was brilliant, and he was very good when he was running into the line as well.
And that tackle he made on their prop towards the end of the game, where he held the ball up under the posts, he sort of wrapped the prop up in a tackle and held the ball up, I thought was superb. I'm going to do something slightly unusual and give a brief shout out to one of the opposition players, actually, and not because of there were some very good players on display from Workington, but. And you probably know which one's coming, Craig, but their number 9, Declan O'Donnell, that mullet haircut was sensational. I think he should be applauded for the rest of the season for rocking that look, particularly in that heat. I loved it.
Pappenhausen look.
Yeah.
I think it's catching on though, isn't it? I've seen quite a few young lads now with the mullet look. So it'll be fashionable for a couple of months. Well, certainly over this summer, I think. But yeah, full credit for that haircut. Although it didn't stop him dropping the ball while under the posts.
Well, I wasn't going to mention that, but no, yeah, he did. He did, unfortunately. And I don't know if you've seen Workington of they actually got some photos of that exact moment, and they've photoshopped the ball out and replaced it with a box of Cumbria tea. which I thought was very good. But yes, if you're looking for one of the more interesting hairstyles in League One, check out Declan O'Donnell from Workington Town. Right, before we spend too much time talking about hair, let's look to wrap this up, but not without looking ahead to this weekend's visit of Keighley Cougars to the Butts Park Arena. Tickets are available now, and I do have to say they would make a quite wonderful Father's Day gift for your old man if you're looking. Kick off 3:00 on Sunday. Craig, the Cougars, they're potentially looking a little stretched squad-wise because they've got a few members of their squad having to self-isolate, as they revealed on their website last weekend. But it didn't stop them racking up a ton of points against West Wales on Sunday. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, so I think they put 70 points on West Wales, and from what I gather, it was a very impressive performance. Though I would say Keighley at home do have that ability to really rack up the points when they've got momentum and got a roll on. I think looking at their results, they're probably not quite where they would have liked to have been at this point in the season. I know that they were going for a bit of a promotion push, and I think they're 3-3 at the moment. They've put in some good performances, but I think there's been one or two surprise results as well. And they certainly looked very strong when we played them in pre-season. So I do think, as you said, there's a few missing. They've released a couple of players as well in the last couple of weeks to other clubs. I think a couple have moved to the Championship. So they might not be quite as strong as they were, but they are a very, very tough team to play against. You've got some very good players in there. Kyle Keswick in particular is a fantastic player. So they'll be hard to play. I don't think it's going to be quite as hot. Might even be raining, so completely different conditions this weekend. But I do think if we can play like we did on Sunday, I think we've got every chance of giving Keighley a good game and winning the match if we can. I think there's a very good possibility of that. We need to be the team that turned up against Workington and Barrow and Rochdale, and not the team that turned up against Scholars and Crusaders, though.
Yeah, definitely. And we've talked a lot about the importance of this run of 4 home games, and you really got to think that the Bears have got to win at least one of those games for it to be a successful chunk of the season. And with no disrespect to Keighley at all, this feels like potentially the one of the 4 that is the most winnable in terms of where the 2 squads are at and how both of their forms are fluctuating up and down this season. So it's going to be an intriguing game on Sunday. And of course, it's hard to talk about playing Keighley at home and not reminisce about that famous win for the Bears against them back in 2018. Obviously, something like that again would be nice. And maybe keep an eye out on the Bears socials later this week, because we might have to dig up the footage from that on our YouTube and share it as we get close to the game and get people in the mood. But yeah, it's certainly going to be a good one, and we will see how it pans out this Sunday, as I said, at the Butts Park Arena against those Cougars. Kick off 3 p.m. Get your tickets now from the Bears website. Get to the match, cheer on the Bears, and then check back here with us next week for all the reaction. I think that just about does us for this week. So thanks to you lot as ever for listening, and of course, Craig, thanks for your insight as well. And we will see you next time.